Hello, I'm Enzo, and every so often I look around for cool mod packs, usually based on stuff from other games I've played or seen. I've been looking for a cool sea-based pack to play for a while now, when I happened to stumble across this pack, Oceanblock 2. I've never heard of it before, and obviously never played the first one, but let me tell you, right from the start, I knew this was easily the best and my favorite mod pack that I've ever played. I first checked this out a few minutes after I found it, and I fell in love thanks to the starting area. Sadly, this starting area is just a hub to start the run, but it's insanely well built. I wish I had this level of building talent in Minecraft. After figuring out some controls, I headed over to the portal here to truly start the run. And I'm going to say it several times throughout the run, but I love this pack so much. There are a few starting options, and the funniest is the wrong mod pack start. I also think the familiar light pod is a Subnautica reference, which is pretty awesome. Speaking of, I guess I should mention why I was looking for a sea-based mod pack. I absolutely loved watching Doshington's Factorio C block run. It's one of the best things I've ever seen, and I really wanted to play something like it, but in another game, because I don't have Factorio and I don't have the time to learn it. This pack is literally Factorio C block and Subnautica combined. On top of my love for the ocean, underwater, and ships, I don't think there's a better mod pack for me, at least out there. It's just such an amazing pack. To truly start out, it's a lot like Subnautica, funnily enough. The whole story is you crash land on an alien planet and you need to survive, hence the life pod here. I don't actually know what the end goal is. I didn't look that far into the quest, but I guess I'll figure that out when I get to it. I was expecting this start to be similar to Crash Landing, where I'd have some resources inside of my crashed ship, but no, there's literally nothing useful here. I mean, maybe these iron trapdoors later on, but nothing I can use to start, at least. The nice thing is that there's a mushroom island right next to my ship, and this is going to be where I'll build my base for the rest of the run. Since I'm not very familiar with a lot of modern Minecraft mods, I have to say, all of the stuff in here looks so cool. The mushrooms are custom built, which means that they don't give me any actual mushrooms. As a matter of fact, these building blocks just clogged up my storage space. But the mushrooms on the ground are vanilla ones. I decided to check out all of my missions to see what I actually need to do, and it gave me a bunch of starting resources. It gave me one thing that it wants me to repair to begin the run. I don't actually know what this does. It says it enables the minimap, and that I have to use normal maps in the meantime, but the minimap is already enabled. But I'm not exactly complaining because it's very nice. Another important thing that I've learned from reading all of this is, just like Subnautica, there's actually a crush depth, so I can't go too deep into the water or else I will take damage and die. I mean, that's not the main issue. I don't have any way to breathe underwater in the first place. I gotta deal with that problem first. I decided to start exploring around to find some resources to get some stuff done. I found this cool little tropical island. I see jungle logs, which means actual wood to begin, and some of these crates. Crates are a very important part of this entire mod, and there are a bunch of different crate types. A lot of the ones here are common ones, and they won't give great loot, but it's good for starting out. I went exploring around for a few minutes and breaking some crates to get some more resources. Most of these resources will be important to start out, except for these ear mufflers though. I mean, it's cool because it does decrease sound that you hear, but not very useful. I guess until later on though, machines can get pretty noisy. But again, I was just having fun exploring. I wasn't paying close attention on what to do. After a bit more reading of the quest, I made a simple flint pickaxe and started mining some stone. I also got a neat little barrel breaking club. It's a neat little tool that obviously breaks the barrels faster and has no durability, so it never breaks. I know this is probably a little cheesy, because I don't think this is intended, but I was mining some stone so I could make an axe to start breaking some of this wood. The The game does want you to grow some trees, I just think not right now. I think I'm supposed to be harvesting some barrels first. It's not like I'm going to use this wood for a little bit though, I'm just making some basic charcoal and stuff for now. I went swimming around to all of these different abandoned fishing boats, at least that's what they feel like to me, and started harvesting even more crates from them. I found this odd little structure. I still have no clue what it's for, but I found a Fluix block which will hopefully be useful later. But I won't be getting into applied energetics for quite a while. That is way later on. One important thing the pack wants me to do is start harvesting the banners, which are kind of like sails on these fishing boats, for string. This lets me build a bamboo raft with some, well, string and bamboo. This gives me way more movement speed in water rather than swimming, and this means I can loot way faster. I headed back to my main island, which will be my base, and got to work on some more missions. The next primary objective is making a strainer. This requires a bunch of string, and I was looking at the bamboo water strainer first, but you are meant to make the spruce because it is a tiny bit easier. The only issue is that I didn't have enough string to complete it just yet, so I'm gonna have to go out and harvest even more. Once I've made the strainer, it also gives me some food, which is very nice, but that's not really an issue, because one thing I didn't think about until way later on is the fact I actually have mushrooms on this island, and since there's no cooldown on milking them, that means literally infinite free food. That is the best part about this specific start. It's nice that I harvested some wood earlier because that lets me make some chests. Storage is always a major issue in mod packs, and it's especially apparent in this one. But just you wait, it'll get super interesting how I fix that. Anyways, the strainer gives me a bunch of basic resources, and it's gonna take time before I get enough to actually make stuff. The game gives me some extra cobblestone so I can make a furnace, and it intends for me to make charcoal, but I already did that with the campfire earlier, so I have charcoal. That's awesome. The first new thing I need to make is called a dripper. I originally thought it needed a stone button, but that specific button is wood. It just happened to look a lot like stone. This dripper is super cool because it works a lot like a player-made dripstone. It took me a few minutes and some reading to figure out how this thing works, but I need to place dirt under it, and I need to get water inside of it to make clay. Now, how do I get water? Well, another cool part about this mod pack is that you can actually use bowls to get water. Yes, wooden bowls. That's certainly interesting. They only have a capacity of 250 millibuckets, which is 1/4 of a normal bucket, but they're all I can make for now, and they work just as well. The last mod pack I played was actually Sky Factory 5. I wasn't a huge fan of it. Even though the colors are a cool concept, the end game did quite suck. The other main reason I love this mod pack so much is the fact that it has just an insane amount of missions, and they tell you what to do. It gives you tons of details on what you're supposed to do to progress the story. Like, what a concept. A mod developer giving players the tools to actually succeed, and again, that's what makes this pack so good. It's still very confusing, but that's just because of how many mods and how complicated this pack really is. Again, I am in love with this mod pack. Now that I have clay, I can do quite a few more things, but first I'm going to be making a clay bucket so that I don't have to use bowls anymore. Just like normal, buckets and bowls do not stack. It's a bit unfortunate, but still makes sense. For my next main objective, I need to make a hammer, but the hammers in this pack are a bit different in how you craft them. Yeah, I'm used to making hammers like this, and not building them straight up like you're supposed to in this pack. It's a bit odd, I'll certainly say that, but I got used to it very quickly. If you've played any mod pack with Feed the Beast just like this, you should know what I can do with this hammer. The classic, cobblestone to gravel to dirt in this case, and then sand and dust. Usually dirt isn't in here, but I have seen that in a lot of recent packs. But here's the main thing that's different about this pack. Instead of using a sieve, like in all the packs I've played before, you actually use what's called a sluice. which is a lot like a sieve but with water. I have to say that is just awesome. One thing I wanted to mention is the fact I've actually been playing with Minecraft music on for a bit of the beginning of this run. I did eventually turn it off because I think new Minecraft music is not that great. Well, as a matter of fact, I don't like most of modern Minecraft. I'm more used to and much prefer the old versions of Minecraft. You see, my expertise lies around 1.12. Pretty much any time before phantoms were introduced. I think phantoms were the beginning of the end of Minecraft. Not the end per se, but like the downfall of quality. That's when the game really got bad. I mean, it's still fun with friends. Like, I played a ton of recent versions, I think like 1.20 or something like that, with friends, but it's just nowhere near as good. I usually turn off the music so that I can have the sound effects in the video and it sounds decent because, you know, I play my own music in the videos, usually stuff from Borderlands and other games I like, but it's also because I'm listening to something in the background as well. It's best to set up the sluice near water because it's going to need a whole lot of that, especially at low tiers, like the basic wooden one you get to start. Conveniently, it can take up to 10 buckets of water, so I can store quite a bit in there, and I love it for a ton of different reasons. And they all revolve around the fact it can be completely automated. Now, here's an important thing about this run. I heavily recommend you watch more of the video before you leave a comment about something, because I usually will figure stuff out. I see that a lot in other videos, and I do appreciate the comments a lot because I usually learn something. I find myself responding to a lot of comments that are saying the same stuff. Anyways, the sluice automatically processes gravel and other resources, which is awesome. You can actually place a chest at the end to automatically collect resources, and you can put a hopper at the front. Now, I did make a hopper for it later on. That's actually what I rushed to make, but I put it in the wrong spot. I was trying to place the hopper on top, and that's not how you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to have the hopper on the same level as the sluice facing towards it, specifically the block that has the mesh on it. So that's how you automate this thing. I just didn't know right at the start. I'm getting a bunch of basic resources from the sluice. They're all the simple metals: iron, copper, silver, tin, and stuff like that, as well as some coal. Now, I actually skipped one step ahead because I made an iron cluster. You're supposed to be smelting the smaller chunks first, and the chunks create nuggets, so I'm going to need 9 of them to make a single ingot. This is very painful, but it's the intended process, at least for now. I will unlock more ways to process iron later on. Then something very interesting happened. An airdrop was incoming. Now that is awesome, but then I noticed something. My inventory disappeared. I panicked immediately because I thought I lost everything, but no. After several airdrops, I can confirm this is just a visual bug. Your inventory disappears whenever that notification is on your screen. And let me tell you, it is insanely annoying. However, as annoying as it is, I can deal with it because the airdrops give some of the best loot you'll ever find in this pack. I mean, even this first one is an example. These are way higher tier items that I won't get for quite a while, and well, I have all of them now. The best part about airdrops is that they actually scale with your progression. So even later on, when I have very high tier resources, I'm still going to get super high tier resources from the airdrops. One important thing to note, though, is that they disappear after a little bit of time, so you need to claim them fast. And trust me, this will become a trend throughout the run, of the interrupting airdrop. I feel like when I'm trying to do something important and actually get stuff done, an airdrop just comes and blocks out my entire inventory. It was incredibly frustrating, but again, tolerable because of the resources. If I were a smart person, I should have made more water strainers to collect way more stone and stuff like that. However, I didn't think of that. Well, I kinda did, but my better idea was to actually start hollowing out this little mushroom island that I have. This process is far quicker than waiting for the water strainer, but the strainer is definitely better in the end. Plus, this room will come in handy later on. After I got enough iron nuggets to make a full ingot, I actually put the ingot onto the campfire. This gives me cast iron. Cast iron is what I need to progress even further. I'm also going to need tempered glass, which is literally the same process. I need glass panes instead though. I'm also going to admit I did not realize you could just put the iron and glass panes in a furnace instead of a campfire. I complained a little bit later on that you couldn't automate this stuff, but you can. I'm just kind of stupid. Not kind of, I am stupid, I know that. Besides the awesome guidance that all of the missions give you, the rewards are really good. Like, getting a bunch of iron chests from the first missions is awesome, because that makes storage so much easier. Even though I could just grow a bunch of trees and make even more normal chests, this is awesome. It also gave me a painting that I tried to place, but it kinda disappeared. This happens sometimes though. Since the painting was way too big to place, it just appeared back in my inventory. The tempered glass jar that I just made is a very important part of this mod pack. You can do so many different things with it. It's quite awesome actually. It's a super neat crafting system. It works based on different heat sources. So you have normal heat, which is just placing it anywhere pretty much, but there are special blocks that can boost it. And then obviously hot heat, which is campfires, lava, or other hot sources like that, or cold sources, interestingly enough. But cold doesn't have many uses. For now, obviously I want hot. There's also superheated, but it's gonna take a long time before I can get into that, but it's super neat. Anyways, the main reason for getting this tempered glass jar right now is to make iron production far more efficient. You see, before it's taking 9 of those iron pieces to make a single ingot. But with this, I can turn 4 pieces into a cluster to make 1 ingot. It's literally half the price for an ingot. It's so much better. And again, this isn't even mentioning all the other cool stuff I can actually make now that I have the glass jar. But making iron even easier is a major step in progression. With all this iron, I naturally decided to make a hopper so I could automate all of this. Again, this is before I realized that I placed the hopper in the wrong spot. I thought it wasn't working, but I knew this thing should be fully automatable, but I knew it should work, but again, I just didn't know where to place the hopper at this time. It took me a little while before I actually made this, but an important upgrade to the sluice would be turning it into iron from wood. This makes it far more efficient in literally every way. It uses less water and it processes everything faster. It's pretty cheap too. It's literally just 3 iron ingots and 2 nuggets. Not to mention, I can also make a better mesh with all this iron. That is, of course, the iron mesh. This lets me get even rarer resources from all of my gravel. Well, I've mostly been using gravel at this point, but I will have to go to sand and dust for more stuff later on. And another reason why I love this mod so much. It literally shows you how to automate it with a hopper. Now, I'm not sure that it works with the wood sluice. I think it might be only iron and up, but still, benevolent mod developer actually tells you what to do in this case. Amazing. My next goal is to make a golden mesh, and while I was exploring to get some more string, I found a revolver. Now this is gonna be pretty awesome. Unfortunately, it's gonna be a long time before I have the resources to make ammo and everything for it, but still, I'm excited for that. The best part about this golden mesh is that I didn't even need to use sand or dust to get it. This is actually the gold from that airdrop earlier on, which is pretty neat. At the time I got it, I just didn't have the tempered glass jars I needed to process it. The second airdrop I got wasn't actually an interrupting one, which is interesting, but gave me a super cool item. This is from the Relics mod, and it's an amphibian boot. These relics give you all sorts of boosts, and, as the name might suggest, this one has a lot to do with water, which, considering what this mod pack is based around, you know, the ocean and underwater, and everything like that, is a super good find. Now, I didn't look too much into how these really worked at the beginning, but I will get to learning about them way later on, and I'll explain them then. But it's a nice little swimming buff for now. Just like with iron and gold, diamonds follow the same process. I believe there are diamond nuggets, but obviously it's far more efficient to turn them into clusters instead. With 3 diamonds, I can make a diamond sluice. This is awesome. It's another major upgrade to my resource production. But of course, I still have to fill it with water manually. Thankfully, the diamond sluice uses even less water than before. And the exact same process for redstone, which will come in handy later. I wanted to highlight this drop from a random loot crate though, a mega torch. Now, I didn't realize it at the time, but mega torches are one of the best drops I can get here, and I should have started using it immediately, but again, I didn't know. What I've been meaning to say is that the mega torch is one of the heat sources for the jars. As a matter of fact, it's the best heat source. For hot, at least. Not super hot or normal. It's kind of hard to word all this stuff. Anyways, that's the best heat source I can have for my jars right now. It's 800% efficiency, compared to only 50% or 100, I believe, with just a campfire. Campfires are really slow. I should not be using them. This entire time, I've also been working on building a jar automator. I mean, the name is pretty self-explanatory, but it lets me automate jars, so that I don't have to click mix every single time I want a new item. Now that I have a decent amount of iron going, I can also use the jar to make some lava. Lava has several uses, but the most important of which should be very obvious. I want a cobblestone generator. I am sick and tired of mining out this island or waiting for the water strainers. With all of this, I'll be making a cobblestone generator. Interestingly enough, this generator actually takes compressed cobblestone, but the glass, water, and lava is all standard otherwise. With that, I finally get a cobblestone generator, and I can immediately upgrade it to an iron tier with cast iron. The quest also gives me a drawer, which is awesome. Drawers, if you didn't know, have an insane storage capacity, but they can only store one type of item. Generally, some drawer mods let you have extra slots or like 2x2 drawers and stuff like that, but this is very convenient. It's also nice that it gives me a copper upgrade so I can store even more cobblestone. And since I have the resources, I decided to upgrade the cobblestone generator again one more time. I have the gold tier, but looking at the recipes, there is absolutely zero way I can get diamond tier just yet. That is a very long way off. To fix one of the problems holding me back from true automation, I built a pump. This will automatically pump water and insert it into the sluice. It's pretty cheap, it just costs some wood and cast iron, which is very nice. Now you might be wondering, well, do I have any power generation? How do I power the pump? Well, it's a pretty cool thing. You actually hand crank this pump and rack up time on it, which I think is a super neat little gimmick to this whole thing. And I mean, it makes complete sense because I'm not going to get power for quite a while. So I decided to sit there right-clicking it for a little bit to charge it up. I paused the recording because I thought it would just be wasting time to record me hand cranking a pump, but boy was I wrong. So, something very interesting happened. If you crank the pump past 5 minutes, it actually damages you, like an electric shock, and supercharges the pump, which is super neat. The best part about all of this is the fact it seems to use less time when it's supercharged. I don't know the exact multiplier, I think it's like 2 or 3 times as efficient, so it'll last 2 or 3 times longer, so that is a super cool feature. Again, I cannot get enough of this mod pack, or the mods inside of it. It's just so well done. And with that, I have pretty much automated resources from my sluice. I can definitely fully automate it, and I'll get to that soon, but not quite yet. I went AFK for a little bit, and I wanted to let these resources run, but when I come back to my computer, I died. I had absolutely no clue how I could have died at all, and this is for a few reasons. Well, I haven't been playing modern Minecraft recently, and since my most recent pack was Sky Factory 5, phantoms don't actually spawn, because no mobs spawn normally. Once I got back to my base though, I realized how I died. The phantoms that I hate so much. The major issue here is I don't actually know where I died and where my grave is. I died underwater, so I was extremely concerned all my stuff would be in there. However, a neat thing about this grave mod is holding my grave key actually teleports me to the grave. That's a very neat thing. So there goes my first and technically second deaths. That is incredibly inconvenient, and it appears I'm going to need a bed now. Yeah, I completely forgot about all of that. Another thing I wanted to make to process a large amount of items is called a jumbo furnace. It's literally a 3x3x3 multi-structure of furnaces. It's pretty expensive, but with my cobble generator, it's a whole lot easier to make now. The main issue is it just doesn't seem to work that well. I guess I should have tested it with more items, maybe even in a creative world. And I learned a little bit later that you're supposed to smelt 27 more furnaces inside to get some sort of buff, but it just never seemed to work for me for some reason. So I'm gonna leave the furnace at that, and I'm gonna have to find some solution for smelting other items that can't go in the jar later on. After that major disappointment, I actually had a decent idea for once in a while. One of the items the strainers collect is actually sandstone. Well, sandstone chunks. You then craft those into actual blocks. But the nice thing about sandstone is I can actually use a hammer to break it down into sand. That's awesome because that skips 2 hammering steps in the process. And considering how much of this I have, it's definitely worth it. This is the other reason I made that jumbo furnace. I was really hoping it would work a whole lot better than it did. One of the reasons I needed the glass is to make an auto hammer. I mean, it should be pretty self-explanatory what this thing does. However, this one is unique. It takes items from one side and outputs them into another, which means you don't actually need like item pipes or anything like that, which I find very convenient. With this, I can fully automate cobblestone to gravel. However, there's one slight issue. I still need to get said gravel to the sluice, and that's what I'm going to be working on next, is making item pipes and stuff like that. While I was working on the pipes, I started work on another item. This is fire clay, which I need to smelt into fire bricks, for a full-blown smeltery. It's gonna be pretty awesome. The issue is that this is not Tinker's construct, which means the parts are completely different, and it's way more expensive because I need a special block for the bottom. I'm going to need 9 of them. I'm waiting around quite a bit for my resources to finish smelting. The item and fluid pipes are really cheap, at least for the starter ones. For items, it's actually just wood and nickel. For fluids, it's copper and conduit binder. Conduit binder is just clay, gravel, and sand. So these are all super cheap. I easily have the resources for all of these. That's nice because this will let me start automating some stuff. I could have automated way more than I did, but I didn't automate much for the start. It really was just the sluice. Oh yeah, I guess I forgot to mention, the fire bricks just cost sand and clay, which is cheap enough. But here's what I need for the bottom. 5 copper, 1 bucket, and 3 fire bricks. Considering I need 9 of these, yeah, that's 45 copper, 15 iron, and 15 bricks. Again, the bricks are the cheapest part. The copper is just gonna take a while to smelt. I know I didn't show it earlier, but I actually made 2 cast iron furnaces. They're super cheap. It's just 4 cobblestone, 4 cast iron, and a normal furnace. You can also make the blast furnace variants for ores, but I prefer general purpose furnaces because I'm smelting all sorts of stuff. Before I got all that set up, I decided to finally make a bed, and obviously painted it orange with some of the orange flowers I had around this island. And instead of actually building a smeltery and everything, I felt like exploring instead. Besides all the cool loot, I found quite a few interesting things underwater. And I don't know about you guys, but that looks like Skulk to me. You know, the scary warden stuff. This prospect is absolutely terrifying, and I absolutely dread when I'm gonna have to go there eventually. I looted all sorts of cool and random stuff from tons of different crates. Most of it was junk, a bunch of it was resources I already had, but the best find by far was a rain shield. I've never heard of this before, but let me tell you, it is one of my new favorite items. Now, most of the mod packs I played aren't great examples, whether it's like compact claustrophobia, where it's just all stone around you, or stone block, or Crash Landing, where it doesn't rain. But my Sky Factory 5 run was a good example of, for some reason, whenever I play a mod pack, it rains like half the time I'm playing. This rain shield makes said rain far less annoying. The craziest part is, in vanilla Minecraft, especially when I was playing with my friends, I swear it almost never rained. But for some reason, once I start playing a mod pack, it rains like half the time. I have no clue how to explain this or why it happens. I'll just say the game hates me. I'm guessing most of you have seen a smeltery before, and this one is not different from Tinker's Construct. As a matter of fact, they feel the exact same, except for one interesting difference I noticed while building it. That actually happens to be the fact that each level has to have all the blocks. If you have an incomplete level, as in all 12 blocks aren't creating that level, then it won't actually work, which is a little bit annoying, but makes some sense. There's also a major issue with the smelter that I'll probably mention again later, but I have to say it is very poorly programmed. Not in how it works, but actually the hitbox. Because you see, it has those heating coils at the bottom, which heats it using the lava. And the issue with those is if you stand too close to the smeltery, in those corners there, you actually take damage from it, which is very bizarre. I've never seen that happen before. Cause when I took damage from standing there, I didn't know what it was at first, but after seeing my mushrooms get damaged from the same exact thing, I realized, yeah, the hitbox is just really off. The best fix to this is literally just filling in the corners with normal blocks. But I didn't figure this all out until way later on. Either way, now that I have a fully functioning foundry, I actually need to make some molds for stuff first. The best part about the smeltery is that it'll let me get way more iron and other metal resources from my chunks. So instead of just one ingot, I think it might give 2 or 1.5. I don't actually know the ratio for this one. Not to mention the fact this actually unlocks alloying, which means I can make new metals, which of course unlocks a whole lot of new buildings and progression options. So that is the primary reason I made it. But getting more iron is also great. I don't know what the rain shield's radius is, but it does have a pretty massive radius, and I love it. Even though the sky is still gray and depressing, I don't have to deal with the rain particles or sound effects. It is beautiful. I always forget that you can sieve, or in this case, sluice items like dirt. I usually don't need to do this, but in some cases you need stuff like seeds or saplings, both of which will come in handy for what I need to do next. My main focus is on finding some mendril saplings to start integrated dynamics, and the seeds will be nice to start some farming things. The super neat thing about farming in this pack is that crops don't actually grow on land. You have to grow them in water, which is pretty neat. This all ties into the story because it's too hot to grow stuff on land, and it is a water planet after all. But I've never farmed like this before, and obviously I'm not used to farming underwater because water normally destroys crops. I think it's a super neat change though. The next thing I made was a cooking pot. It takes a bunch of bricks and a wooden shovel, but it has a ton of uses, including making slime balls from kelp, and even cooler, honey from sugar. Now, why do I need honey? Well, I can make a leather substitute with honey and dried kelp. This is awesome, and it has a ton of uses. I already have some leather from exploring, but I will need more eventually. The missions also told me to make a backpack, so that's exactly what I did for even more storage space, and I decided to go on another exploration trip. Well, before I go exploring again, and the main reason I was actually processing dirt in the sluice is because I was looking for mendril saplings. You see, I've never actually used the integrated dynamics mod, but this playthrough has opened my eyes. I understand why it is such a good and powerful mod now. You can literally automate just about anything. It is incredible. The craziest part is just how cheap it is to make everything with mendril. Now, I don't have enough to make everything right now. I'm gonna have to build a squeezer and drying bin if I want to make more. But the main problem for my progression is actually glowstone dust. You see, to make a very simple ME storage system, I need an actual display, and to make that display, one part requires glowstone dust. This is absolutely tragic because it's such a powerful system for so early on in the game. And that's the primary reason I went exploring, because I was hoping to maybe find glowstone from a crate or a chest somewhere. Naturally, I didn't find any while exploring, but I did find quite a few unique structures. These are all like mini surface dungeons, but I am definitely not prepared to fight any of them just yet. So I'll observe them for now, mark their locations. Well, I actually didn't, but they are easy to spot on the map. And I'll come back to them way later on. Once I got back and after sorting all of my stuff, my next goal is to actually blow up some cast iron. If you guys have seen my Crash Landing playthrough, you probably know where this is going. Yes, compressed iron for pneumaticraft. But I get my first instance of an interrupting airdrop, just when I'm trying to do something, of course. To add insult to injury, the airdrop actually contained the glowstone I was looking for, but only one piece. Of course, right? I can't really complain because everything else was really good, especially that cow in a jar. Literally free milk. But I completely forgot about it the one time it would have been useful. I know earlier I said that I'm using dried kelp for the fake leather. The base is actually cotton. The dried kelp is for a thing way later on. But with this fake leather, I'm actually using it to make compressed iron armor. This is a decently powerful set of armor. Actually, it's just slightly better than iron, but it does give me some knockback resistance. Something I should have done way earlier on, and definitely made it way deeper instead, is build a simple kelp farm. Now, I'm sure there are ways to automate this, but I'll have access to plenty of kelp once I can go deeper into the ocean. But for now, I'm going to need it for some stuff. Now that I have a full set of decent armor, I decide to finally make an actual weapon. I haven't had to fight any creatures yet, partially thanks to staying on the surface and that megatorch, but the weapon I decide to go for is actually a scythe. You see, a basic sword is cool and all, but that's what I use every single playthrough, and I wanted to spice things up for once, and thankfully, one of the mods in here lets me do that. Naturally, the scythe isn't as good for single target damage, but it excels at clearing out groups of enemies, which is awesome. And this is the point when I figured out that it was actually the smeltery that was dealing damage. It's definitely bugged, and as you can see from my mushroom's health, yeah, it's gonna be an issue. You see, I don't want these mushrooms to die, because I don't know of any other way to get more. I should have been feeding them wheat this entire time so that they breed and make more mushrooms, because again, free infinite food, but I still didn't think of that until a bit later on. Earlier, when I was talking about making that fake leather, here's why I got kelp and cotton confused. It's because I actually need the dried kelp to make a diving suit, which is super neat. The material I need to make the diving suit requires dried kelp and brown dye, which are both extremely easy to get. I've been sluicing a ton of dust, thanks to a bunch of auto hammers, all for the bone meal. I need the bone meal so that I can grow a bunch of cocoa beans really quick. The rest of the suit just takes copper and glass, so it's pretty easy to make. I finished up the diving suit, and as a reward from completing the mission, I got a ship, which is cool, but I placed it in the wrong spot, pretty much beaching it and actually killing it in the process. This was a tragic loss because I would have loved to try the ship out, and I guess I really should at some point, but that happened. Back to the actual diving suit. It's extremely confusing how you fill this thing with oxygen, because it looks like you just put the chest plate in a crafting table, but that wasn't working. I tried consuming the air bottles, but that actually just gives me levitating, which was pretty funny. Thankfully, I have a huge pool of water to fall into. The main issue with the whole diving suit is that I don't see the purpose of it this early on. The main issue is that I still can't go below the crush depth. Even when I'm not in water, I'll still die, and that's a major issue here. The biggest part of this problem is obviously dying this low, because all of my stuff is down there, and I'll die when I go back. Thankfully, I managed to teleport to my grave by holding right click on the key, and I got out of there just barely in time. I don't know why the diving suit exists, because this isn't the one I need. The one I need to go below crush depth is way later on. I don't think there's anything in the current area of water I can actually access, so I still have no clue what the whole purpose of this thing is. After that disappointment, I wanted to go exploring again, when I found what appears to be a guardian temple underwater. It looks quite modified, and I'm guessing that's unique to this pack. Well, it is. I explored that way later on. But the main thing I want to explore for now is these structures on the surface. This one looks really cool, and I'm guessing it'll have at least some loot in it. There were a couple of spawners which I quickly broke because I have no intention of dealing with the mobs that they spawn. I climbed up to the top, not knowing that the middle structure is a cool little water elevator. I could have just broken into it the whole time. The most interesting thing that I found in here was a soul lantern. Now, obviously, I picked it up because it looks cool, and it has to be here for a reason, right? Yes, this will actually be very important a bit later on in the story. While I was looting some boats, I managed to find, funnily enough, an obsidian boat. This is insanely useful, especially because it's rare, and it saves me the pain of making even more obsidian. It also gives you a slight hint at what the nether is gonna look like. On my way back home, I found an airdrop with a whole bunch of interesting items, including roller skates. And as interesting as they are, they're about as terrible as they sound. So they're just gonna go in a chest and be forgotten about for the rest of the run. My main goal on this journey is to raid these giant structures, because I have to admit, this place looks absolutely sick. The place is full of different spawners, which I quickly take out as I have no intention of dealing with whatever they spawn. There are some crates around the place, but they're pretty common crates. As I get closer to the top of the tower, I encounter a brand new type of enemy. They are called bogged. Wait a minute, why does it say they're from Minecraft? Wait, are these things in vanilla? Wow, I guess I really haven't played Minecraft recently then. I've literally never dealt with the whole trials and everything like that, so it makes sense I haven't seen them before, but those poison arrows are insanely annoying. But I guess this is just a sign that I'm gonna have to play Minecraft's most recent versions soon. Once I get to the roof, there's a special spawner, and I have seen these before. This is a trial spawner, and it spawns these things called shadow beasts. These are the things straight out of nightmares. On top of that, they give you slowness and blindness. Yeah, this is just part of why this mod can be absolutely terrifying. Let's not even talk about once I get to the bottom of the ocean. It gets even scarier down there. Anyways, these shadow beasts are ridiculously tough, and my scythe probably isn't helping that, but I have plenty of really good food to heal me. Once I beat it, I get a whole bunch of good loot, including an ender pearl, which is super awesome. I have to sort out my inventory a little bit more because, unsurprisingly, my backpack is also filled up with tons of loot. On top of that, there are a couple of other crates and some replica ore, which will come in handy later on, and of course some infernium and diamonds. All good stuff. That trip was also super convenient because it got me the obsidian boat and soul lantern that I needed. My next major goal is to get to the nether. For that, I'm going to need some obsidian, which I can easily make in a jar. Now, I'm guessing you could make a nether portal just using lava buckets, but there is a mission that specifically wants you to get a certain amount of obsidian. Besides the portal, I also decided to make an enchanting table for obvious reasons, even though I did not use it that much, because the scythe doesn't appear to get any sharpness modifiers. At least I didn't roll any in this enchant. Now that I built my nether portal and I have everything ready, it's time to go to the nether. So here's the interesting thing. The mod pack requires you to have a soul lantern and obsidian boat to go here. The soul lantern is so that you don't, lose your soul. And when you complete the mission, it actually gives you a soul lantern, which you can equip as one of the baubles, and it actually has soulbound. So if you ever die, you don't lose it. The interesting thing about my nether spawn is the fact, well, it's all the way up in the sky. You see, that's kind of an issue. How do I get down onto that lava lake? So apparently, I should have checked the actual mission that it gives you once you reach the nether, because it actually gives you a free fire resistance potion. I really thought I had to go find a fortress and acquire a blaze rod. to then make, the brewing stand and magma cream and everything like that. But it does give you one for free. The first thing I found was a small little structure that had a ghast spawner in it. This is a slight issue because now there are ghasts everywhere. Thankfully, they don't seem to spawn naturally. I mean, I haven't seen any besides these small structures. The main issue is that I don't have a bow or anything like that, so I'm gonna have to fight them the hard way. This whole trip was pretty terrifying, but at the same time, really fun. Again, I just wish I had a ranged weapon with me. That revolver would go crazy right now, but I don't have the materials to make the ammo. Well, thinking about it now, I actually could have. I can easily cast the copper for shells. Basic cartridges are cheap. I have gunpowder. Well, I kind of wish I had thought about that at the time. Either way, my main goal now is to get back to my portal. More specifically, create a whole staircase so I can get up to it. I finished up the staircase. Naturally, I used actual stairs so that I don't have to waste more hunger getting up and down it. Now I have a way back to my portal. That's great. I can finally start exploring the Nether, and this is where the map really comes in handy. It took me a while before I started really using my map to check out the place, but yeah, it makes spotting POIs way easier. The first thing that I found was a common island. There's not too much of note here. There's some netherrack, blackstone, and gilded blackstone. Unfortunately, if you've seen my Sky Factory 5 run, I can't get netherite from this. This pack does have a way easier way to get netherite though, but it does make this gilded blackstone pretty much useless. It only drops gold in this pack. And of course, one tiny nether crate. I found this larger island, which looks really cool on the map, but it's infested with zombie pigmen. Yes, I absolutely refuse to call them piglins. They always have been and always will be zombie pigmen to me. This island has quite a few crates, but here's the weird thing. There's some sort of creatures that spawn here, and they look quite terrifying, honestly. Considering how quickly they're literally sweeping the floor with the pigmen, I think I'm just gonna get these crates and get out of here as fast as physically possible. I can't even stop the spawner because they're some sort of trial enemies. Yeah, I'm gonna have to come back here at some point to deal with them, but definitely not yet. This whole time I've been looking for a nether fortress. Now, I didn't know this at first. I thought they could only spawn underground, but they can actually spawn on the surface. And this isn't extremely rare, but this is a super cool example of it. Since I still hadn't realized that you get a free fire resistance potion by turning in the mission, I have to play this extremely carefully. But here is the coolest thing I've ever seen in Minecraft. An under lava nether fortress. Just look at that. It is so insanely beautiful. Besides how awesome this place is, I have to be extremely careful. If you guys don't know how Minecraft systems work, block updates and everything like that, my theory is that if any one of those top 6 blocks update, the lava will cause a chain reaction for it to all update and collapse in on me, which would kill me and burn all of my stuff. Not a good day, so I have to be very careful with what I do down here. Unfortunately, this is a pretty small nether fortress, and there's not too much good loot here. But there is a blaze spawner, and that's the main thing I was looking for. Nothing else truly matters. I just need the blaze rods so I can make some fire resistance potions. Again though, I absolutely love this world generation, and that's another reason why this pack is so awesome. I don't know if this happens in any other mod packs, but there's certainly none that I know of. This is when I turned in the missions and got that fire resistance potion, as well as this chaos box. I don't remember all of the rewards in them, but I don't think any of them can be good. It spawned these creatures, which are terrifying as well, not to mention how much they hurt. The big golem dude is actually the easier of the two. It's that little thing that has the guardian attack that's gonna be the problem. Besides the annoying nausea effect it causes, it likes to teleport around, making it incredibly annoying to kill. They didn't seem to drop anything good, and I didn't really understand the purpose of the chaos boxes. I guess they're like mini challenges? I'm not sure. But these mobs will be seen a bit later on, once I get deeper into the ocean. I decided to head back to the Nether, both for more loot, and importantly because I haven't found glowstone yet. That is the primary reason I've come here. Conveniently, it didn't take me too long to find a brand new structure I've never seen before. This one looks super cool, and guess what? It is filled with glowstone. The only mild issue is that it's also filled with blaze and wither skeletons. Well, a piglin spawned here for some reason. Like, there's no actual piglin spawner, it kinda just spawned. On top of all the nice nether crates, there's also a piece of ancient debris here, which is awesome because I am very close to being able to make a netherite ingot. Again, most important of all, glowstone. Finally. Now that I have my glowstone, I can finally get started on making that terminal to access my storage. Never mind interrupting airdrop. I need to go get that first. I mean, I still can't complain. A mega torch, all sorts of good loot, and a thermoelectric generator. Yeah, that is one of the best things I can find right now. They're actually not too expensive to make, except for the fact I don't have the ability to create steel just yet. So, pretty dang important. One thing I needed to make the actual terminal is mendril glass. Well, I accidentally took out the glass a little bit too early on the first attempt. Well, the first thing I actually tried was harvesting some from that first island that I went to with the jungle tree. It's actually surrounded by mendril glass. Unfortunately, I need silk touch to actually mine it, so I'll just have to make it myself. All of the other parts I need for this terminal are pretty cheap. It's all a bunch of mendril stuff, some redstone, pistons, all easy enough. Once I got that, I moved all of my chests underground, and at long last, I finally have a basic storage system. It's not quite refined storage or applied energetics just yet, but boy is it handy. You see, this is when I finally realized that I've been neglecting this mod for so long because I didn't think it was that good, but after looking at all the parts in here, I'm starting to understand the true potential of this mod, and wondering why I've never used this before, with how much is possible thanks to it. So from now on, I'll have to look for this mod and use it whenever I can, because this is amazing. Now that it's even easier to make things, I built an infusion altar and some pedestals for it, and then I got another chaos box, but it was the same Taz thing. This is just the name of the creature, it's not what they're actually called. After dealing with that thing, I made one of the gates. Now this is very similar to the ones in Sky Factory 5, and the crafting recipe was really cheap. It was just a bunch of flowers and cheap stuff like that. But it has a bunch of waves of enemies that were relatively difficult. That's probably just because my gear sucks. But the whole purpose of completing this gate is it'll give me a whole bunch of food and natural items, which, you know, are mostly food, but at the end when you beat all the mobs, you actually get a ton of passive animals. So I guess you can use these for food and stuff, but honestly, they were just annoying. After that, I decided to get into Just Dire Things. This mod has a lot of interesting stuff. The mod revolves around this goo stuff. It's pretty interesting, and you have to feed different tiers of goo different things, and I didn't realize you had to feed it immediately at first, but when you surround it with certain stuff, like iron in this case, it transforms it into other stuff, but it only works on the 6 blocks surrounding the actual goo block. It's pretty neat, actually. I'm not 100% sure how I would automate this just yet. I have some ideas, but they'll take a very long time. I'm guessing it's going to have to do with automatic block placers and miners. Still though, it takes a while for the goo to kinda corrupt the iron blocks and transform them. The goo spreading to the other blocks is actually super creepy. I mean, it's a neat effect, but very odd for sure. And a while later, they finally transformed into fairy core ore. I'm guessing it's like ferrocore, you know, like iron, because, well, that's what it is. This mod's version of iron. Now I just need to smelt it. I tried the smeltery, but that didn't work, so furnaces it is. Completing this mission actually gives me a pickaxe, which I believe is flint, but it has Unbreaking 3 and Silk Touch. That's pretty awesome. This is used to make ice, because you can actually do that with this goo stuff, but I didn't do that until way later on. This mod has a ton of uses and potential, but I didn't get too much into it until later. With access to all of my items, crafting is a whole lot easier, especially considering there's a built-in crafting table. I made a soul campfire. This is my starter superheated source, and this will let me use the jars to craft some more special stuff, which is pretty neat. Another important thing I'm making is coke bricks for a coke oven. This requires these magma droplets, which come from a magma block. Conveniently, you can make that with 4 magma cream, which I actually never knew. I thought you could only mine them from the nether, but I guess I learned something new every playthrough. I went back to looting the nether for a little bit, where I found a netherite auto hammer, that's pretty awesome, a steel ingot, and some sponges. That's gonna be great for what I have planned. After that, I found this massive structure in the nether, so you know I had to check it out. But once I stepped inside, saw a burning arena, and see an odd spawner inside, I knew I had no chance against whatever is in there with my current loadout, so I'll have to come back there eventually. After that, I found this neat little structure that has a massive basement in it, and of course, this basement is filled with tons of good stuff, including crying obsidian. Now that is massive, because if you guys didn't see earlier, crying obsidian can be used to make a respawn anchor. Respawn anchors, besides the fact I've never used them before, are actually useful for the jars. They give the jars an 800% normal heat multiplier. That is awesome, I can't wait to start using it. And I almost completely forgot about the draugrs that spawn here. That's a neat little Skyrim reference there. After that, I wanted to do something a bit riskier. That is, of course, raiding a bastion. And honestly, it was going pretty well. I take a whole lot of damage, but I'm fine if I just play it very slow and safe. And I have to say, it was all going very well. Playing like a coward was working out, until I messed up placing my blocks and fell in a hole of my own making. Yep, that's one way to die. That really sucks for a few reasons. 1. How do I get back to my gear? Of course, once I respawn and want to start making new gear, an airdrop comes in. That is my second interrupting airdrop. Anyways, the main issues with getting back to my gear in the nether is the fact I need a new obsidian boat and a new soul lantern. Except for the fact the soul lantern you get from the mission earlier has soulbound, so I don't lose it. That's not the problem. Again, it's just the boat and new armor. I decided to bring a set of normal gold armor so that I didn't have to deal with the normal piglins, but I still killed a few where I could. You know, by pushing them off the edge. No witnesses. In the end, and very much by using the minimap, because seeing all the mobs on the map is insanely helpful, I did manage to get my gear back, which is very good. After I cleared that place out, I found this other neat little structure that has a trial spawner. There are a few of these that I actually passed, but I wanted to try this one out. The enemies are relatively difficult, that's why I'm hiding up here. Actually, they're not difficult, but they just hit like trucks, and that's my main problem. I don't have enough extra hearts just yet, and the extra hearts I actually have are coming from an artifact of some sort. Either way, as long as I keep eating food, I'll heal up enough to keep doing these. They are pretty fun, and naturally give really good loot at the end. One of the super cool things I found was a netherite stick. This is from a mod called Construction Sticks. These are pretty much builder's wands, which I was looking for them at the beginning, and I was concerned because I didn't find any, but yeah, this is our builder's wand. Since all the mobs have been annoying me, I decided I'm gonna clear them all out, except for the mushrooms. I finally swapped over to mushroom soup as my main food. I will keep 2 cows just in case though. Now that I have a ton of nether resources, there are a bunch of things I want to make. The first thing I want to make is Blaze Bloom Goo. It's an upgrade to the primordial goo that I had earlier, and this one allows me to turn gold into, well, blaze gold. It also allows me to do quite a few other neat things. The main problem is that it requires nether warts or blaze powder as its fuel. Those are still quite expensive for me, but thankfully I later found I had some soul sand and started growing more nether warts. The next big thing I need to make is a resource I've never seen before, and it is a copper alloy. Well, it's literally called copper alloy. It's made using quartz and copper, which is a super cool combination. This is a vital ingredient in the next technology that I need to start making. I also need to melt down more quartz to cast into silicone. This is going to take a while, so I'll be back when it's all done. I also have enough netherite to upgrade my sluice to a netherite sluice. That is awesome. As you can guess, it's way better now. However, there's one mild thing I didn't consider when I upgraded it. The sluice has a power indicator on it, and it's never truly mattered until now. You see, the netherite sluice actually needs power to work. I caught on to that very quickly after I placed it down. Now, normally this would be a major issue. However, do you remember that thermoelectric generator from earlier? Well, it's coming in clutch right now. And conveniently, I have water and lava to fuel it. Unfortunately, I don't have access to the best reactants for it, which I believe is blue ice and uranium for the heat source. But still, it's good that I got that. That was an awesome find. Speaking of ice, I learned from some reading that I can actually use the Blaze Bloom goo to create ice, which is pretty neat. The only issue is that I encountered waterlogging, which again, I forget happens because modern Minecraft, but it is pretty neat to watch it transform into ice. The even cooler thing is it'll actually transform normal ice into packed ice. And if I get 9 packed ice, I can make 1 blue ice, which is even cooler, literally. Besides the thermoelectric generator, blue ice has another important use, that is making basalt. You can kind of see it there, but I made a little automated lava setup, and this is important because the sluice can actually take lava instead of water. You need at least a gold mesh, which I have, and you can actually put most resources in there. And instead of creating resource chunks, it'll create the finished products, like iron ingots, gold, diamonds, stuff like that. It's neat because you can also put in nether resources, like netherrack and crushed basalt to get different things. One, you can see in my inventory here, is a dirty netherite scrap. I made this whole fancy basalt setup without realizing that there is an actual basalt generator you can make. It's very similar to the cobblestone generator, and it requires compressed basalt. So that's why it is good to make a basic setup like this first, and then use the basalt to make the generator. The resources I get from the sluice also heavily depend on the type of mesh I have. There are still 2 meshes I can get, but I'm very far away from because, again, I don't have diamonds. Once I can get diamonds, though, I can make the first mesh, and I will get the resources for the next one later on. With those, I can get even better resources out of this sluice. But for now, I can get netherrack, and again, dirty netherite. I can then crush up the netherrack and put it through the sluice to get even more resources, most important of which is quartz. To clean up the netherite scraps, it's actually pretty simple. I just need an infuser. Now, the infuser does take power, but thankfully, we've already gotten that sorted in one spot. To increase efficiency though, I want to upgrade the other sluice with netherite. Doing this is pretty annoying. It's a whole process. To get this catalyst, you're actually supposed to put coal around the goo a few times to upgrade it quite a bit, but I got this one from an airdrop. To use it, I have to throw it into a pit of water. Then I throw a piece of coal into that fluid. So I might have mixed it up. That was actually the coal that you get by upgrading it on the goo. This mod is very confusing if you can't tell. So I'm not sure how you craft the catalyst, all I know is that I had it. I'm gonna have to wait for this fluid to transform by the goo for a little bit, but I believe once that's done, that is a special and extremely powerful type of fuel. I mean, it better be good considering how long it took to make. And this is going to go into a generator from Just Dire Things. This generator will power my netherite sluice next to my smeltery. Now that I've collected all of these resources, and with a bunch of stuff that I've gotten from airdrops, mostly these motors, I can finally start making some machines. The first one is the steam engine. This is how we're going to get power, but we need a few more parts to make it all work. I'm not 100% sure what else the Steam engine can do, but I also need the Steam engine add-on. However, I used up the rest of my invar, which means I need to make a bit more. Since I have no experience with this mod, it is very confusing. And out of confusion, I accidentally built another Steam engine. I meant to make a magma boiler instead, but I only figured that out until a bit later on. Conveniently, it appears that most things in this mod use these liquid and item pipes, and eventually some energy pipes. These are all universal, I guess, which is awesome. Naturally, I'm building this entire setup right next to where I have lava automated, and I have to say, it's a super neat mod, because it appears all these things are like multi-block structures. You place the machine itself down and then machine cores to expand it. It took me a while to set everything up because it is very confusing, but the awesome thing is that the mod itself has a guide that tells you exactly how to set everything up. My entire plan was just to do a steam loop, but apparently it wants you to just use a water source and then delete the excess water because it does lose some water over time. However, with this setup, it is a bit odd. It took me a while to figure it out, but it works. Unfortunately, it's not the best it could be because it's only designed for one Steam engine, but I wanted to make it work because, well, I have two Steam engines. I don't want to waste it. At long last, I finally have power. I just need to make the power conduits to transport it, but still, that is a massive step in progression. The first machine I built was a foundry. This thing eats up a ton of power, but gives me the ability to make a ton of new alloys, most important of which is steel. Steel is another big leap in progression because that allows me to do so many new things. But of course, it's going to take quite a while for all of this steel to process. One of the best things about getting steel is the ability to finally craft a diamond mesh. This requires 4 steel rods, which is, 2 steel ingots. This is insane because now I can get blaze powder right from crushed netherrack. Now, you might be wondering, how do I get blaze rods then? Well, I can actually throw blaze powder into the smeltery and cast it into blaze rods. Isn't that insane? I was dreading having to go back to the nether and farming blaze rods, but no, I can literally do this all at my base. Have I mentioned how much I love this pack yet? A lot of the footage I have is literally just me clicking around crafting recipes, just being amazed at the insanity that's about to come. But then I see this, a nuclear bomb, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I want to blow up the ocean. Now, I doubt it's actually going to have that effect, and, I'm nowhere close to making it, but I think that is now an end game goal. Blow up the ocean. Now that I have basic power and some steel production going, I can start making more machines and stuff like that. There are a few machines I have on my list to make, and they're from 2 important mods in this pack. We have Ender.io with the classic alloy smelter, and Mechanism. The foundry can also create quite a few alloys that the alloy smelter can do, but, a bit earlier. And I actually upgraded the cobblestone generator to diamond a bit earlier. And to do that, obviously you just put some diamonds in with a gold cobblestone generator. This is when I had one of my rare good ideas. This is going to be an entire line of the hammering process, from cobblestone all the way down to dust. The reason this idea was so cool is because each stage is going to go into a drawer, and the drawers are all going to have item interfaces for the integrated dynamic storage system, which means whenever I need any of these, gravel, dirt, sand, dust, I can literally just take them right out of the inventory. The best part is that I can actually export these anywhere I want now, so this is fully automated. It's actually a super cool system. I also just found out that I can actually melt down ancient debris in the smeltery and get double the netherite out of it. It means I also have to smelt down gold, but hey, I will take this. That means way more netherite for me. If you're wondering how I'm getting more netherite, it's from putting crushed basalt into the sluice with a diamond mesh, or I believe the blaze mesh. I might go over that a bit later. I got enough resources from the airdrops to make a bunch of machines so far. However, since those are running out, I'm gonna have to start making my own parts, which is a little bit annoying because it requires casting quite a few things. In this case, I need to cast electrum plates, which I then have to snip down into wires. You see, you can't just use a hammer and ingots to make plates, you actually have to cast these. It's incredibly annoying, but it's only this bad for now. It'll be way easier to automate all these parts later on, but I'm working my way there. This machine is a centrifuge, and it is awesome. It gives me all sorts of new crafting options, most of which will allow me to make new complicated items for even more complicated machinery. It also has the ability to craft stuff with fluids, which is pretty vital for creating other complicated parts, including plastic. The first thing I'm making are carbon fiber strands, which is literally coal dust put into the centrifuge. I also have to say, these machines have really cool animations, like the centrifuge looks awesome when it spins up like that. One of the most important ingredients to make is, naturally, plastic. So, how do you get plastic, you ask? You need to use these little compressed wheat thingies. It's literally just 4 pieces of wheat in a crafting table. You put that in with some water. The nice thing is, the output of that, the biopolymer, is just put right back into the centrifuge and boom, you get plastic. Awesome, we finally have plastic, and this unlocks so many more options. If you guys have seen my other playthroughs, you probably know what all of these ingredients are about to craft. That's right, it's garden cloche time. I mean, creating the coke oven was the first sign. I mean, I cannot resist the garden cloche. It's just the best modded building ever created. It's going to be a bit more difficult to create in this pack because I actually have to cast all of the iron to make plates, so I'll be back, because that's going to take a while. For the water source, there's actually a better block that I found a bit later on, but I at least wanted to try out the pump from Oritech. The other modded block is literally like an aqueous accumulator from thermodynamics, and it's so much better because, you know, the pump requires power and everything like that. But again, I want to see how it works. From exploring, I've gotten all types of different seeds, and more importantly, a bunch of soil from Just Dire Things. You see, this soil makes the plants grow so much faster, and I have quite a bit of the high tier ones. As a matter of fact, I can't make these just yet. That's how high tier they are. On top of the nitrate that I've been getting from my sluice, I can grow a ton of plants very fast. I'm growing all sorts of different stuff that'll come in handy later on. It's nice that I already have a few of the seeds that I've been looking for. You might have also noticed that I planted beetroot seeds. What do I want with beets? Well, conveniently, they can make red dye. You see, I had this whole awesome plan for this run. Considering we're on the ocean, I wanted to build a ton of cool warships. Unfortunately, that plan never really panned out because I didn't really see the point, considering this is all about automation and stuff like that. I want to build cool warships and stuff like that in Minecraft, but this mod pack is not the place for it. I'm thinking maybe like a long-term vanilla world or something like that would be way cooler. So that project kind of got abandoned, but maybe I'll work on it in the next part. And of course, the first ship I wanted to build is a destroyer, specifically the Japanese Akizuki class destroyer, the World War II ones. I think there's a modern version, but I don't know modern warships that well. They're one of the coolest destroyers in my opinion. In the middle of working on that, another airdrop interrupted me, and it had a bunch of cool loot, as usual, but the coolest thing, this freaking portal gun. Now, there are so many cool things I could do with it, but I kind of forgot it existed after I just threw it back into storage. I don't have too many purposes for it, but who knows. Besides the fact I completely forgot that you can just make cast iron by re-smelting it, I've actually been making it by putting it into the superheated jar with some coke coal. 16 iron and 1 coke coal gives you 16 cast iron. It's a really good recipe, and it's relatively fast. I still need a whole lot more compressed iron because I don't actually have a pressure chamber to make it. Just yet. As a matter of fact, that's what I'm working on right now, because the pressure chamber is a very important part of pneumatic craft. I've been working on getting into the new version of Pneumatic Craft. It's pretty neat and there are a whole lot of new features, including heat, which is interesting. It's necessary for some machines. Some things need to be very hot. Other stuff needs to be cool to be more efficient. It gets a little bit annoying. That's all on top of the fact I still need air pressure for everything to work in the first place. The thermopneumatic press can do a ton of different and super cool things, but the primary thing I want from it is upgrade templates. I got 2 other thermoelectric generators from airdrops. I decided to hook those up because I desperately need the power, and with that I finally have my upgrade templates. It's at this point that I'm really starting to get excited with the quests I see. These are the items that should allow me to go even deeper underwater than before. This is when the game truly begins. It's super exciting. The only problem is that all of these things are very complicated and expensive to craft. I am going to need an insane amount of these air canisters. They're not the worst to make, but I need a lot of them, and I'm gonna have to make even more compressed iron. The game only requires you to make leggings and a helmet. However, I wanted a full suit of this pressurized armor. It's a super cool set of armor, and it repairs itself with air pressure if you have the right upgrades. Conveniently, I had enough leather to make a full set of leather armor, which lets me make compressed iron armor, and I need that to finally make the pneumatic armor. Well, it's technically called pressurized armor, but pretty much the same thing. Besides the armor set looking absolutely sick, I mean, it totally looks like an Iron Man suit. As a matter of fact, I'm guessing that's what they modeled and based it off of, especially with all the startup stuff once you actually pressurize it. And I am getting tantalizingly close to being able to truly traverse the depths. All I need now is to make a scuba upgrade and the upgrade that'll let me survive crush depth. Also, have you guys ever just learned something and never been able to forget it? Well, one time, my dad told me what scuba meant and I just couldn't forget it since. Scuba means self-contained breathing apparatus. It's just one of those bizarre things I can't forget just because I know it now. These upgrades were actually pretty easy to make. I just didn't have any of the parts I needed up until this point. But at long last, I can finally go underwater. Well, I have to charge up all of my gear with air first. And it gave me a ton of soulbound books, which is awesome. This means that I don't lose my armor when I die now. That's one of the best things ever. But, you know, I have to set up all my stuff first, so I'll be back. Even though I have the armor and upgrades now, there are still a ton of things I'm going to need before I can go underwater. One is going to be a good supply of air. I mean, if I want to stay down there for a decent amount of time. Another thing would be some sort of mining tool, because a pickaxe is going to go at a snail's pace at those depths. And, of course, a weapon. For this, I've finally gotten to creating bullets for my revolver. I don't have the ability to make the specialized bullets just yet, but I do have netherite, which means I can make armor-piercing bullets. With everything prepared, it's finally time to truly explore the depths of this world. Since I was still very confused about how all the air pressure and everything like that worked, I was actually using water breathing potions, which is a perfectly viable alternative, but it's definitely intended for you to use pressurized air, which then goes into your scuba unit and lets you breathe. But, you know, this works as well. The first underwater structure I found was one of these giant skystone asteroids. This is from Applied Energetics, and obviously is very important to getting an ME system truly set up. I decided to get a mining laser because I thought it would be very cool, and it definitely is. I just haven't upgraded this one that much, so it's still pretty slow. Inside of the meteor, we have a ton of Certus quartz and a mysterious cube, which looks a lot like the controller, and honestly I have no clue what any of this is going to be used for, but I guess we'll figure that out together later on. Once I got out of the meteor, I decided to pick a fight with one of the squids here. Why? I wanted to see how well my revolver does. Apparently, guns don't work well underwater. Who would have guessed? That's something I have to keep in mind if I want to use this as my weapon, which, I mean, I still do. I went back to that underwater garden that I tried to get into all of that time ago, and now I can finally raid it. It's full of plants. I mean, of course, it's a garden, but it also has a few garden cloches. Unfortunately, I didn't bring the right pickaxe to actually mine these things, but this place is still awesome because of all the different varieties of plants that are in here. I can make pretty much all of these. Some I can get from loot drops, but why make them when you can just loot them? I found another structure that is very similar to an underwater garden, but this one actually has mob spawners in it. The only issue is that this mining tool can't actually mine those. This means I'm gonna have to clear this place out really fast before a bunch of stuff spawns. This appears to be a massive structure, but there wasn't really much inside. It's another small underwater farm. It had a couple of enemies and some loot in it, but nothing too interesting. But this structure looks a whole lot more interesting. There is a mob spawner in the middle, and this super cool erythral glass. It literally lets me swim right through it. Such a neat thing. You guys remember that Taz enemy and the giant golem I was fighting earlier? Well, this place spawns them. That's a slight problem because they are very tough, especially when there are a bunch of them. Not to mention the fact they literally hit like trucks. Thankfully, I can run away right into the ocean. Since I can run and heal, and then swim around and go back in whenever I need to, it's a whole lot easier. But it was still a bit terrifying. I got a ton of good rewards from this, including a pair of elytra. I really didn't think I would get elytra until the end, which is very, very far off, but this is an awesome find because I can fly around my world, or the nether. But I won't really use these for a little bit. Back to exploring, I found this suspiciously perfect stone cube, and I knew there had to be something underneath it. Obviously, it looks like a structure, and inside, well, it was pretty interesting. It looks like some sort of abandoned dig site. There's all sorts of stuff here, and there's a giant crystal in the middle. I can't actually damage or mine the crystal just yet, so I'm guessing that's for later. But there are some barrels with a bunch of loot in it, which will also be helpful for later. There also happens to be Skulk here, which is a little terrifying, as usual, but thankfully no warden. I went down to what I thought was a separate part of the Guardian Temple, but later on I found that the entire thing does link up together. This is a super cool version of the Guardian Temple, and honestly, I like this better than vanilla, especially thanks to the trial spawners. The only issue is the pure density of mobs in here. They absolutely tore through my health faster than I expected. That is a mild issue. On one hand, I still have my pneumatic armor, but on the other, I need to go get all of my stuff back, which, includes my backpack full of loot. With some more water-breathing potions and golden apples just in case, I managed to get all of my loot back, and decided, instead of staying and fighting, and do shorter bursts of combat so that I don't die many times. The design of this place is really cool, but also helps a ton against the Guardians. Like, they literally cannot go past these chains, so I'm just safe in here. It doesn't make much sense because it makes this place really easy to cheese, but I'm certainly not complaining. The loot here isn't anything crazy. I mean, it's all underwater and Guardian related stuff. There are some other rooms as well, full of good loot, and some spawners with drowned. Naturally, they're super easy because they move slowly, and, my scythe. Eventually, I found the main room that had the Elder Guardian and everything else in it. This place is filled with trial spawners, making it extremely dangerous, but well worth it if I can beat most of these enemies. It just takes a while and a lot of hiding, but I managed to beat them all in the end. This trial spawner dropped a key which just happens to fit in a little vault right there. I got some other cool rewards, the best of which is a trident. Awesome. Another underwater weapon. The only thing is I don't have enchantments for it and I barely used it except like this one time. Still, a super neat find. One cool thing I found is the ability to remove water from sponges using Ender.io's fluid tank. This will come in handy if I actually decide to use these sponges. Back to the depths, I decide to explore that massive skull structure, I guess, that I found way earlier on. Naturally, it's pretty scary going down here because my gear isn't the best it can possibly be, but I need the skull for one of the next missions, so I have to come down here. At some point, I'm guessing the spawner in the middle spawned its enemy. You know the major problem here? An airdrop interrupted me. Besides being blind and taking damage, I have no access to my inventory either. As you can probably guess, I booked it straight out of there. I was not having any more of that. The airdrop happened to contain a totem of undying, which is incredibly convenient for what's about to happen. You see, that thing is what the trial spawner spawned. A tentacled horror. I mean, the name is pretty fitting, I have to admit, especially considering it can grab you and everything. Needless to say, I'm not surviving that whole encounter. The only way I could is thanks to that totem of undying. Right as I was about to make another attack run, this deepling brute literally comes out of nowhere and kills me. I did not expect him to just appear and deal so much damage. I mean, I got him at the same time, but you know, that tentacled horror is still down there. And here's one of my classic bits of Minecraft knowledge. The most efficient way to use splash potions is actually to throw it onto your head, because that's how it gives you the most effect. You actually get less effect the further away it is from you, which obviously means it's less at your feet. So again, best to throw it up and at your head. Now that I have all of my gear back, I should also mention the fact I got another revolver from that airdrop. This gave me a slightly awesome idea. Dual wielding revolvers. I'll admit, it sounds way cooler than it actually works in this pack, but still, kind of awesome. And now, it makes you want to go play some more Borderlands 2. My most recent playthrough in Borderlands 2 has been as Salvador. It's a co-op run with my dad, and I'm having tons of fun. It just makes you want to go play more. For now, though, I decided that I can't deal enough damage quickly enough to kill those tentacled horrors, so I'm gonna have to come up with something else before I can beat them. Using a Heart of the Sea that I got earlier, I can make a heart amulet. I have a few heart canisters, I think they're all from airdrops at this point, and these will increase my health a little bit further. It's not much, but it definitely will help. After a while of browsing through all the items, I finally figured out what I want to make. The issue is that I don't have all the resources just yet. I still need to make all of them. For this, I finally got the pressure chamber to work. If you guys watched my crash landing run, you'll know I had a ton of problems with the pressure chamber and all of the compressors exploding. Thankfully, I'm only using an electric compressor this time around. One of the major issues with that pack though is because it's so old, the pressure chamber didn't seem to work right all the time, as in the input and output seemed very buggy. However, this one worked perfectly. I also made a couple of heat sinks to make the flux compressor run a bit more efficient. I tried to use blue ice earlier, but the code is smart enough to actually melt the blue ice. That really sucks considering how difficult it is to get blue ice, is what I would be saying if I didn't have ice seeds, which makes it far easier to produce. So what have I been working towards? It's one of the coolest items I've ever seen in Minecraft, or weapons specifically. I've been trying to get a minigun. It's about as awesome as it sounds. A freaking minigun. This is from Pneumaticraft, and I should have remembered it way earlier because I actually got some ice ammo from an airdrop way earlier on, but we all know my brain doesn't work half the time. I have to say, Pneumaticraft Repressurized is easily one of my new favorite mods. There's so much stuff you can do with all of the items and especially upgrades in this mod. It's so neat. Once I upgraded and pressurized it, it's time to finally test it out. And I have to say, I am in love. It doesn't destroy blocks, and I don't know how it's going to do against enemies, but boy does it look awesome. My current issue is still pressurizing everything with air. A long time ago, I filled up a ton of air canisters, and only now did I realize that I can just shift click them and they'll automatically charge everything in my inventory. This includes my scuba module. So as long as I keep a few of these compressed air canisters in my inventory and filled up, I should be good to go. I decide to head underwater to see how this minigun does, and oh boy, It is insane. Yeah, this is my new favorite Minecraft weapon ever. It completely tears through these squids, which were difficult for me to kill earlier. The only real downside is its short range. However, that can be solved with upgrades. You see the pattern here? You can make this thing even more powerful than it is right now, which is just pure craziness. Speaking of crazy though, how cheap all the minigun ammo is. This stuff is literally dirt cheap. Compressed iron, copper, gunpowder, and all the special minigun ammo types are really easy to make as well. That is stupidly cheap for how powerful this thing is. Back to that skulk structure, and it's time for my revenge. Now, you can't hear it because I didn't record it, but I was laughing like a psycho when using this thing. It is just stupid how powerful it is. I was also in disbelief that it just shredded those tentacled horrors up like that. It is the definition of a hot knife through butter. As ridiculous as that was, you won't believe one of the rewards I got from that trial spawner. I kid you not, it is a self-aware Ender Dragon model. I should not have access to this at all right now, yet it just drops out of nowhere. Now, I didn't actually see what the Ender Dragon prediction can drop, but still, an item this rare, just like that. I mean, I'm not complaining because that's awesome, and I won't be using it for a little bit, but still, that's a crazy drop. While I was sorting all of my loot, I decided to start figuring out how all the relics and upgrades work. In the menu, and over time, you actually get XP, which gives you skill points that you can spend to upgrade certain abilities. Besides the XP in the actual relic, you do have to spend some of your own XP levels to upgrade the skills. I have 2 amphibious boots, which are obviously great because I'm gonna be doing a lot of swimming. So the skill I'm naturally upgrading on those is fins, so that I can swim even faster underwater. One upgrade that was extremely easy to make was night vision, and that of course goes on my helmet. Once I figured out how to activate it, I can see pretty much clearly underwater. It is awesome. Obviously, my view distance is still a bit limited, but that's just Minecraft and my graphics settings. Still, this is going to be a massive upgrade for when I can go even deeper underwater. I went back to clear out the trial spawner in this place again, and yeah, the enemies are a whole lot easier with this minigun. I can't get enough of this thing, but that's not the best part about this entire trip. At the end, I looked up on the ceiling and was dumbfounded when I saw it. This place had amethyst the entire time. For some context, I've been looking for amethyst for like a few hours at this point, and no matter what I've been trying, I just couldn't find it. I can't go any deeper underground. I've been looking everywhere, but finally I found amethyst, and I can actually get some good progression going now. And here's the water tank that I was talking about way earlier. You just put it next to some other water sources and it generates water. It's incredibly helpful when you need water. It's about time that I finally got to setting up some true automation, and to start, I'm going to need resources, a whole lot of them. I completely loved that whole cobblestone to dust setup, so I recreated it here. For my power, I'm going to use a ton of thermoelectric generators. It's the easiest method I have right now, and relatively cheap to make. Here's my idea for the whole setup originally, and yes, I did build all of this. My first idea was to use all the raw resources and then smelt them when I need them. The main problem is that this would take way too much power, and it's way more complicated than it's actually worth. So yes, I completely deconstructed this setup. Eventually, realizing how bad that was, I decided to swap over to lava instead. And it is a far better idea, getting the fully completed resources instead. I originally went with raw resources so that I could get all the byproducts, but it's definitely not worth it. Also, originally, I was using gravel, sand, and dust. But in the end, I realized I only needed gravel and dust. So it's 1 gravel sluice and 2 dust sluices. This gives me all the resources I'm going to need for later on. I'm guessing I'm gonna have to scale it up eventually, but this is a good start to make most things. I also have to automate more basalt and netherrack for quartz and stuff like that. Even though I just had a massive surge of progress by exploring all of the stuff underwater, things are definitely slowing down now, and I'm not 100% sure what I want to do next. This always happens in runs where I know what to do, but I just don't have the mental capacity left to do it. That's why this is a good time to end the video. I really didn't want this to be a multiple part series, but considering how massive this mod pack is, it is necessary. I don't know if I'm a third or halfway through the run, or somewhere in between those two, but there's still plenty left to do, and it's only going to get more insane and take even longer from here on. Again, I love this mod pack so much. It is easily the best pack I've ever played. I cannot wait to finish up this video to get back to it. Because you see, that's one nice thing about editing these videos during the run. Editing the video helps me plan out what I'm going to do next and refreshes me on a lot of the stuff I've done before. And nearing the end, I really do want to get back to this pack. So I hope all of you enjoyed watching this video as much as I loved playing this mod pack. I always appreciate all of you watching. And of course, a special thank you to all of my channel members. All of you are absolutely awesome. This is going to be Enzo from LookIntoGaming signing out.